Just to say, this has been arranged and organised by Cardiff Writers Circle, Living Lines Writing Group, Roath Writers, and the A48 Theatre Company. So, our first port of call is just over there, Mill Lane meets the arcade, the Wyndham Arcade. All right, everyone, follow me, please.
It's such a pity I never met your late husband. I hear he achieved quite a lot in the short time he was on this earth.
Yes, John liked to keep himself busy. If he wasn't organising meetings and conferences for the Cardiff Arcade Company, he would be arranging cricket matches.
Is it true that he was the captain of the Cardiff Cricket Club and that he played for the Bute household by invitation of Lord Bute himself?
Yes, that's right. John got to know Lord Bute through his connection with the Cardiff Arcade Company.
You must have done such a lot of entertaining.
John was dedicated to his work. Many of the dinners were to discuss the proposals for the arcades. Architecture was, of course, his primary interest.
A love of architecture he shared with my husband, of course.
Indeed. I believe they met, briefly, through mutual architect friends when John had just finished the designs of the Royal Arcade and had just begun the designs of the Wyndham Arcade.
I was told that when the Royal Arcade first opened, a man who was walking through fell into the coal cellar below when somebody opened a trap door.
Yes, that was unfortunate. He was rather a heavy man, I believe. He only sustained a couple of cuts and bruises. Nevertheless, the trapdoor was made secure and it has never happened again. That week, a lovely milliner's opened in the arcade. I bought myself a new hat.
And did you say that he designed the Wyndham Arcade?
Yes, that's right. It has a wonderful glass roof, just like the rest of the arcades.
I have heard that the high glass roofs have had an effect on people's behaviour. There are stories of immorality going on in those arcades, especially the Wyndham and the Royal.
Surely not. What kind of immorality? Whatever do you mean?
You know, courting and that sort of thing. Couples have taken advantage of the narrow arcades to walk closely together, holding hands, and the confined space and the light from the glass roofs have encouraged a kind of decadence. Not seen before, my husband says.
But I've only heard praise for both the arcades.
My husband told me that he read in the Cardiff Times that the young ladies' morals were being contaminated and that the Royal Arcade was becoming known as the Arcade of Gentle Lovers.
Really, Agatha? How vulgar. The arcades have provided not only shelter from the bad weather, but have encouraged many unusual shops to open. And the glass roofs look very inviting with the gas lighting in the evenings. John was very proud of them.
The gas lighting has invited some activities that are not so pleasant. Some people say it's indecent, such wanton behaviour.
I remember John telling me that the area around the Royal Arcade was known to be the worst place to live in Cardiff. Poor sanitation and goodness knows what else. Now the arcades provide not only shelter from the rain and shops, but much improved accommodation. I am very proud of John and the part he played.
Well, I do like the shops.
I'm ready to leave now. Shall we?
One point I would mention regarding shops. You may be aware that, amongst other things Cardiff can boast, it has the oldest record shop in the world. That's official. Spiller's Records was founded in 1894 It's currently in the Morgan Arcade, but it used to be just along by the Royal Arcade, which is the oldest arcade in Cardiff. Founded in 1858. So, thank you very much. We'll just pop around the corner to Caroline Street now. Thank you very much, everyone. We're on Caroline Street at the top of it. Caroline Street is currently known as Chippy Lane because it features mainly food places frequented by young gentlemen with nothing better to do in the night after a heavy drink and so on. But you'll hear more of that later. But it used to be a mixed trading place where you had trades of all sorts, and one chap had a watch clock and other timepiece repair shop here, and we're going to hear a conversation now between him and another watch repairman. So this is On Time by Stephen Burgess. Gentlemen.
Tick, 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 tick. I spent my days watching my work mark out the passage of my life. Tick, tick, tick. And being always reminded of the passing of time. Seconds became minutes, minutes became hours, became days, became years. Tick, tick. And time's seasons turned those years around. And all to a slow, soporific, steady, repeating tick.
Tick, 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 tick. Like George, I was a watchmaker. I spent my life losing my time to making time for others. Tick, tick, tick. Years folded into days, folded into hours, folded into minutes, folded into seconds. Tick, tick. And around those hands inscribed circles around dials, all that in my life, unfolding with temporal motions. Tick.
It was intricate work, delicate fingers interlocking the mechanical elements.
Winder,
Mainspring, barrel, wheels,
escapement,
controller,
balance assembly,
watch face,
hands.
atomic pieces nested and toughed into a metal system. And then, when the components were in the right place, energy wound life into the system and the heart began to tick, tick, tick.
Tick, tick, an assemblage of parts sparked to life in your hands. The watch pulsing with time, movement in balance. Mechanical energy flowing through its geared wheels, the continual rebirth of chronology.
Ever more numerous, our creations counted down our lives in a crescendo of noise.
And our creations outpaced us. After we were gone, long after we were dust, our timepieces ticked on.
We watched through the years as time became mechanical, become digital, become atomic.
We watched as people divided time ever smaller, making brevity significant.
And when all the clocks have gone, there will still be time.
And long before the first clock marked it, there was time.
The universe ticking.
Was there ever a time without time?
Because without time beginning, well, nothing can exist.
But without time passing, nothing could come to be.
And all we really knew, as we gave the years the power to tick themselves away,
as we watched our watches count away our lives,
was that one day
we'd both be out of time.
I should mention the two watchmakers themselves were George Best and Edward Kaltenbach, and the thing we then went on to play for Manchester United.
That's before the drink.
Yeah. I just want to point something out to you all. If you look at this stone here, this stone next week is due to be replaced by a blue plaque, because that is the only paving piece in the whole of Cardiff that has not been dug up by the council in the last 5 years. However, by digging it up to put a plaque there, they will have destroyed the So, thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And we're now going over to... Thank you, everyone. Cardiff's always been a city of the arts, as well as being the largest coal exporting port in the world one time. And I just want to point out that over there, the Prince of Wales, when I was young, it was what was called a skinflint. You would go in there and see rude movies because they hadn't invented video. But I didn't. And what we're here to find out is the story of Edward John Fletcher by Willis Williams. Jesus.
I've seen him a few times now at the Prince of Wales pub over there where I live. Edward John Fletcher, born 1836, died 1897. He was only 50 odd years old. That's young, isn't it? He was the manager of the Theatre Royal St Mary Street in that very building over there. Very famous and la-dee-da. Highbrow stuff they put on there, Shakespeare and all sorts of plays, and no smoking or drinking during the performance. Serious stuff, not like your light-hearted music hall shows. Mr Fletcher had a big legal bust-up with the chap who ran the Grand Theatre of Varieties, the music hall in Westgate Street. What was his name again? Oh yes, Harry Day. That's it. I've seen him too, once or twice, at the Gatekeeper, the other pub I clean for. Funny old thing it is that two grand old theatres in Cardiff both ended up as pubs. Anyway, this Harry Day chap, he wanted to get a special licence from the council to put on plays. He wanted his theatre to be a high-class establishment, he said. But old Edward Fletcher, he wasn't having competition in the next street. So he called in his lawyers, and the long and the short of it was that the music hall had to stick to what it did best. Song and dance and all kinds of weird and wonderful acts. Trained monkeys they had, and acrobats, mesmerists, ventriloquists, trick cyclists, and even flying children. I suppose you're wondering why it is I say I've met these chaps who've been dead for years. Well, not met exactly, but I have seen them. My two old buildings started life as theatres, and then they were cinemas, bingo halls, all sorts, and now they're both pubs. What I believe about these old places is that there's been so much going on. So many people talking and laughing, crying and arguing, singing over all those years. All that life doesn't just go away. I like to think that my two pubs has taken every little bit of that energy in and holding it in the walls and the floors, and sometimes reflecting some of it back, like an echo. Yeah, that's what I reckon I must have seen and heard when I've been on my own in the big empty bars after everyone else has gone home. Echoes. I've seen the echoes of the managers like Edward Fletcher and Harry Day having crosswords and making big speeches. And I've heard the bold as brass singing of the old-time musical songsters like Mary Lloyd. I think she was singing that old favourite, "My old man said follow the van." Do you remember that one? I reckon I even caught sight of her once. Just a glimpse of fancy outfits, lace and feathers, faded like. And sometimes I just hear the rumbling chatter of the audience as they wait for the interval to finish. And I smell the tang of the oranges they eat. Well, Mr. Edward Fletcher must have had a good life. He was part of the crack act in Cardiff and very matey with the mayor, and Mr. S.A. Brain, so I've heard. A connection with beer, even then. And they gave him a good send-off by all accounts, with eulogies from famous actors. All the great and the good of South Wales were there. But I'd best get on. got another ship coming up. I'll fetch my mop and I'll clean the floor, sticking with tonight's beer. But when I stand by the bar, where they say the stage once was, I'll listen out for whispers of those grand old times, those long gone voices. Ta-ta!
Thank you. You heard the name S.A. Brain there, of course, Brain Beers. The original brewery was situated in here, and there was a well, there still is, that they used to draw the water from. And for many decades they claimed that all their beer was produced from the water in the well. But that was a bit of, shall we say, largesse on behalf of publicity purposes. So we'll head up now to the market. Imagine how they would get everybody on it down. Right, we are on the site, effectively, of what used to be Cardiff Jail. So there will probably be a few dodgy characters still about, apart from myself. And at the far end of the market, there was an open air market. When this market was erected, I mentioned earlier it's a grade 2 listed. This was erected in the late 19th century and is part of Cardiff's heritage. You have a store at the far end, Ashton's Fish, which traded in the open air market, which had been here since the late 1700s, and they've been trading since 1866 apparently, so we have quite a lot of old shops. We're here now to listen to the story of Dick Penderyn by way of a conversation. This was written by Peter Gaskell. Thank you.
My name is William Rowlands. I am a Wesleyan minister, one of more than 11,000 people who petitioned for a reprieve. The Home Secretary, Lord Melbourne, granted one. So why is this innocent man going to the gallows now?
Because the 10 days he ordered is up, and the reprieve has come to an end. Dick Penderyn will be hanged at 8 a.m. here outside Cardiff Jail.
But 10 days is insufficient to get the evidence. Dick Penderyn is innocent.
You shouldn't be telling me that, Mr. Rowlands, but the Home Secretary.
We tried, but he would neither see nor listen to us. The guilty parties with blood on their hands in this case are those industrialists who called on Merthyr's magistrates to summon the 93rd Highland Regiment from Brecon on the 3rd of June. When the crowd tried to overpower their military force, 16 people died when they opened fire from inside the Castle Hotel. Against this massacre, the sentencing of Dick Penderyn for a wounding crime he did not commit is an outrageous injustice.
Not according to Mr. Justice Bosanquet and a jury at Cardiff Assizes who convicted him.
On the evidence of a witness who lied to the court.
That is an allegation, sir, for which I advise you too may be arrested and tried.
James Abbott gave false witness when he testified against Dick Penderyn at the trial. The truth will come out one day, believe me.
And what makes you so sure?
Because I saw who committed the offence of wounding Private Donald Black, even though the soldier himself didn't know who attacked him.
So why did you not tell this to the court?
I was not called as a witness because, fearing capture, my neighbour, Yanto Parker, fled to America, and my evidence was ruled inadmissible.
But Dick Penderyn's fate is out of my hands. I'm sorry.
But The truth is, while Lewis, the leader of the rioters, had his death sentence committed to life with hard labour, this execution will go ahead solely because the Home Secretary wants us at least one rebel to die as an example to anyone struggling to improve the conditions of their working lives. Merthyr Tydfil will have another martyr to remember and remind us that the scales of justice are not evenly balanced. Martyring Dick Penderyn will only further embitter relations between Welsh workers and the authorities and strengthen the trade union movement.
Should have pointed out there's a blue plaque outside which commemorates Dick Penderyn, who is now generally accepted as totally innocent. And we're heading up to the Castle Arcade now. Okay, thank you everyone. So going here now. Castle Dreams by Nisha Harichandran, our very own, and this relates to her wedding day, and I'd like you to give Sean your best ears, please.
People moved in waves as our chauffeur pulled up our conveyance. A champagne-coloured vintage Regent in front of the Castle Arcade. Situated in the heart of Cardiff, across from Cardiff Castle, this historical passage, set in a Dutch Renaissance style, was a fitting location to capture our debut as man and wife. My footsteps trace the seasons. Daughter, sister, teenager, young adult, working adult, girlfriend, fiancé, and now wife. Is she a princess? Oh, beautiful. Congratulations. Wow. Echoed the background as we walked, photographer and makeup artist to our left and right. The sunset-coloured sari, embroidered with sequins and pearls and intricately woven with gold, ruby and emerald threads, accentuated royalty. The plaits crisscrossed into my upward hairdo, matched the overhanging bridges and linked arches, bringing two as one. Chin down and look at me, please, guided our photographer. Blushing, eyes twinkling, I leaned against the oriel windows and smiled. Looking sharp and dapper, Mr. V walked towards me, his eyes kind, affectionate, and his hand warm and strong as he gently placed my henna-painted fingers, a symbol of good luck, onto his. Leaning on his shoulders, I made it home. We waved to the crowd gathered below as we walked up to the balcony for more pictures. The summer sun shone through the framed glass marquee, and this natural collaboration with the photographer shone more than light, the radiance of our hearts. For the next 20 minutes, we twirled under the continual arrangement of the arches, building our dreams in a castle. Whilst the camera applauded us in clicks, recording history. "That's a wrap," she said. Bidding adieu, we stepped into our four-wheeled carriage, hearts full for a reception with loved ones and to explore the chapters of our marriage. Thank you.
Can I ask you to also give Nisha a round of applause? The arcade opened in 1887, as you all is drinking us. It's a fabulous place. My wife and I would have got married here, but it hadn't been finished then. We're now heading down and out this way towards the castle to hear of a different kind of adventure. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think that's everyone. Okay. Right, we're going to hear the story of Ivor Bach by Peter Gaskell, who has also been asked to perform this one. I just want to let you know that the Roman fort, which was wooden, was replaced by a Norman castle or motte on a mound in the late 11th century when they came and took everything on in the early 12th. But this adventure takes place in the just after the mid 12th century, and none of this of course would have been here. This was all originally put up in the 15th century, and the walls were moved around and the animals added about 1928, 1930, but some people will tell you other stories, but you don't want to listen to that. So here we are to hear the story of Ivor Bach, sorry. We've done Dick, Ivor Bach.
A mae gwaed ar fy nwylo. There is blood on my hands. Not from climbing this wall. The sharp edges of its Norman masonry tearing my skin, but the throats of the castle guard I slice once I'm inside. My son is 18 today, and he wanted to come in my stead, but I bid him no. Stay, defend our fortress upstream against Norman confiscation. His apprenticeship for holding our lands once I'm gone. Should he doubt that I have the strength at my age, I will prove myself worthy as defender of our rights to the hills and the woods of St. Geneth, according to Cyfraith Howell, our Welsh law. Here, in enemy territory, I stand fearless of the wild animals that stalk the length of these walls, or the guards who protect the Norman Baron William Fitzrobert, Earl of Gloucester, within and his family. Romans built this castle, yet my Welsh ancestors finally reclaimed Cardiff, now colonised by these Normans. We'll be seeing them off too. It was the element of surprise that did for them. Jumping down silently from the wall, I crept along in the dark to slay the guards lolling by the castle gate, without a sound to disturb the sleeping family within. Heraldic crest on their bedroom door. With ease I overpowered them, marched them out through the gate into the street, my men waiting to bear them, bound and gagged in carts up to Singenith, where they will hear my demands tomorrow morning for my lands to be restored. Norman conquest of Everbach's lands will await another day. If it should ever happen, it will be over my dead body. Thank you, Rain. You held off long enough.
Moving around now, I just wanted to say that Everbach, local hero and so on, he did maintain his lands until after he died and the Normans eventually took everything. So the castle itself for many centuries was in the hands of the Bute family, and it passed to Cardiff City when the current, that was, Earl of Bute died, and they gave it to Cardiff to avoid paying debt duties. They also gave a number of other things, such as Castell Court. On a fine day from parts of Cardiff you can see it, a fairy tale castle poking out of the broadleaf woodland on the hills above the city. Castell Court means technically the Red Castle, so called because it has a green roof. That's Welsh for you. But the Butes were quite adventurous in their entrepreneurship. They even tried to grow wine grapes on the fields beneath Castle Court, and it was so strong it took 4 full-grown men to drink 1 bottle. There was the victim, 2 to hold them down and 1 to force it down their throat. But now we're going to look at some other fine buildings around the corner. Right, Martin? Thank you, everyone. Sincere apologies for the final change of situation. The grass was a bit too wet, and so it would have been difficult for a number of people, me included. Just want to say, if you look around the corner, not at this moment, but when you can, you will see a pair of lovely Baroque buildings which were completed in the early 20th century. The City Hall, and that's been replaced of course by the County Hall down the bay, and there's also the museum. And they were always known as, one building was full of old relics that nobody was interested in, and the other was the museum. But now we're going to hear a story about the same time that those were being built, and it is about an adventurer and inventor, Ernest Willows, by Kathy Thomas.
Could I ask you just to come in a bit? It's a bit of a challenge for me with the traffic, I'm afraid. Okay. Time heals. That's what they say. Don't believe it. 1926 my son Ernest died, and not a day has gone by since, but his mother and I haven't grieved over him. It's 1931 now. Ernest's mother would have come today to acknowledge the opening of Ernest's airfield in Splot for letter flying. But she buries things deep, she does. Always understood Ernest's big ideas though. I thought he'd become a dentist like me. But these youngsters always talked about going up there. I told him I'd be going up there before he would. Not in my wildest imaginings did I think he'd build an airship. An airship! Where on earth did he even get that idea? Willows, he called it. 85 minutes. It stayed in the air. Beginning of a new era, the paper said. My son, landing right down there by the statue of Lord Tredegar outside City Hall. If I close my eyes, I can still hear the cheering of the crowds when he arrived. What did he get? £50. That's what he got. £50 he was granted with a wife and baby to look after. They didn't see what they had right under their nose, those politicians and councillors. They didn't want to take a risk to support him. Happy for me to put money into his factory though. Oh, not that I begrudged it, mind. I mean, I wanted the boy to succeed, of course I did, to make a name for himself. I didn't think that going to London would be such a good idea though, I must tell you. But his mother did. She said they'd take notice of him in London at that exhibition. He doesn't even know the way to London, I said. Mind you, she chuckled when I told him he kept having to come down and ask people for directions. Mind you, it was brilliant. Brilliant. A stroke of genius when he decided to follow the railway line, of course. That's the way he found his way to London. Oh dear. That was the longest cross-country airship flight on record at the time. He always had big ideas. He and his friend Frank wanted to get the London to Paris record in Willows 3, the third generation of their airship. City of Cardiff, he called it. What a size that airship was. Took some guts to fly it, mind you. Thick fog over the channel. Petrol frozen in the engine. And his friend Frank managed to drop all the maps over the side. And French customs officials wanted to charge him for import of fuel. I'd have given them a biff on the nose if it'd been me. Oh dear. But my son then made the longest flight of an airship of its day. What was his reward? Bankruptcy. £205 it cost me to build that factory in Splot. £12 at auction was all it raised. Mind you, the war changed everything. Oh yes. £1,000 the Admiralty gave him for Willows 4, the fourth generation of his airships. It's not what he wanted to see though. Airships used as weapons. Oh dear, those German Zeppelins, that was a different story altogether. It's not just soldiers dying in 20s now, as my wife says. Now children in their beds aren't safe. Man never learns. Always the same. Always the same. One day, this city will claim you as one of theirs, I told him. They'll name you, what? A school after you. Cardiff could have been one of the most important ports of the air if the people in charge had only invested in my son's idea. Instead, he has a plaque on a wall in the Weatherstones pub. He spent his last days living on a barge in the Thames in London, taking people up for joy rides in Willows 5, leisure rides. Oh, the thrill of it, the freedom of being up there. Oh, it's wonderful, but until it went wrong. Never stood a chance, any of them. Crew Park Flower Show. Well, the netting tore away and, well, they never stood a chance, any of them. None of them. Oh well. Time heals, isn't that what they say? What do they know? Fly high, my son. One day, Cardiff will remember you for more than just leisure flights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, one of Fearless flights landed by the City Hall. Whether that was intentional or not is debatable.
The crowd doesn't read it.
Yes. So we'll head around now onto Queen Street. Infamous for Deliveroo bikers and so on. So be very aware as you walk around this area. Couple more. Okay. We're on Queen Street, as you can see, Myron Bevin statue, founder of the National Health Service, and we're going to hear Colours of Recovery by Sarah Hayes.
Today, I dress in the celebratory colours of my cholecystectomy. Yellows and greens with slashes of pink on a one background. A shirt I painted last night after standing in my post-op shower and seeing my bruised, stitched body. I am rid of gallbladder, stones and the insidious polyp that made me pace at night after meals. Thank you, slick Mr. Hassan, kind Linda and the staff at the day unit. At breakfast, Phil says, "That shirt is yuck." Oh, thank you. I like it too. Because I do. We walk to school, Phil and the younger son, Roath. Pleasantries complete, the goodbyes, love you, and they're off. I look forward to picking them up later. They judge me, but they're fun to be with. Morning, Ems. It's Owen's mum. Hi. She looks at my shirt. Been experimenting again? It tells a story. Liberation. An end to pain. Okay? Great. We go our own way. Who will I be? Now I'm well. Now I can choose. A chef with low-fat menus. Mystery customer sampling top restaurants because I can eat anything now. Dietitian. No. Just me. The robust me from years ago. Now, I don't yet inhabit this body easily. I'm still frail, clumsy, a liability. I need rehab, exercise, good food, no more slobbing. Perhaps I'll take up Tai Chi. Watch me. Watch me stride out this sunny morning. I head for the museum to dislike all the old china. Yes, even the stuff from the Glamorgan potteries. I devour each golden rose, pink cherub, leafy green trail framing fainting cowgirls. Why? Because knowing how they were made, the toxic paints and processes, the wasted health of the workers, this opulence is distasteful. I pull away from the vitrines and head for the cafe, past mixed media exhibits, gaudy in their wool colours. Before I reach the stairs, the whiteware distracts me. I peer into an alcove, a cabinet set into the wall. I stop and bask in the glows from rows of sleek porcelain beakers. No handles, some with dimples, most beautiful in their ranges of white, bone white, daisy white, cream tea white, bridal white, clean, hanky white. I think white as I go back to the school dates. Saki white, burning white, notepaper white, bedclothes white, white. No more dwelling on my bruised tum. Tomorrow I will wear my plain white shirt. A fresh start.
Based on a true story. Now, we're going to head back down to the Hayes and hear Martin's piece. So if we could go this way, please. May I say, I admire your tenacity. Especially Penny with the baby buggy and everything else. Okay, everyone, thank you very much. I'm pleased everybody made it in one piece. We're near the centre of Old Cardiff now, and the graveyard for the 12th century church. This story is a somewhat fictionalised account of an occurrence that was genuine. Martin had a meeting with someone unexpectedly, and it struck him deeply. And so what we're going to hear now is The Railing Story by Martin Buckridge.
I had it all once. Once I was like you. The line between us is thinner than you think. John read these words carefully printed in hand on a cardboard box, flattened and tied to the churchyard railings. He usually walked this way in his lunch break, round the block, into the market hall to buy a sandwich, then out the other side, facing the ancient city church with its yard and footpaths surrounded by iron railings. The lonely often gathered here, sometimes standing, sometimes sitting, some with dogs on street-worn blankets, always waiting, their faces carved by circumstance. Some days John would drop a coin and feel virtuous for the afternoon. Most days he would look away uncomfortably and walk on. But for John, life was good. He had a well-paid job, nice flat, many friends. He was flying high. But the words on the card, "Once I was like you," jolted him. And he looked down at the grey-haired writer, hunkered, printing laboriously on another piece of card. The man looked up, eyes clear as glass, breaking through his 30-something, 50-something features. After an eternity, John offered the man half his sandwich and sat down beside him to eat. Well, the next day, and for the following few days and weeks, John bought an extra sandwich to share and sat down with the writer, who began to talk. Once the sun smiled on me, softly, silky, warmly whispering, "Come, rise and with me soar." I took wings and flew, higher, faster, horizons expanding, my work, my home, my love, my chicks. Friends for life, I thought. Barbecue, patio, shiny new car. Nice to see you, sir. Oh, come back soon. I lined my nest with them all. It was too much. Too soon. Too high. too far. A slip, a trip, an error of judgment, long remembered, never forgiven. I toppled, I tipped, I tumbled, bewildered, feathers molting, joys of my life, credit, family, friends, workouts. I filled the gaps with recreational pleasures, daymares, nightmares, craving more, falling fast. No net to catch, no hand to hold, to stop me landing hard on paving and doorways, underpasses, against railings. And the sun laughed at me. You see me here now. Once I was like you. Well, this story unsettled John, safe in his bed in those quiet moments of the night when darkness presses and the mind races. He would wonder about his birdman friend, even plan how he could be his saviour. Could he? Should he? Would he? One lunch break, John walked to the railings with an extra sandwich and stared at the emptiness where his friend should have been. Around the emptiness, some plumage remained, a fag end, a ballpoint, a fragment of card still tied to the railings. John's imagination wandered. Had something softly stalked him in the night? Sharp teeth and claws taking him to who knows where? Shaken, John walked back to his office and to his busy life. He never saw his friend again, and soon forgot. Time moved on, the seasons passed, fortunes rose and fortunes fell. Lives were made and lives were broken. Early one winter morning, a solitary grey-haired figure wrapped in a street-worn blanket carefully tied a piece of card to the churchyard railings, took out a pen and slowly wrote, "I had it all once. Once I was like you." A kindly woman from the market walked over with a mug of tea. "Ah, hello," she said. "You're new here, aren't you? But there's something familiar about you. What's your name?" The figure stopped writing and looked up at the woman, eyes clear as glass, breaking through his 30-something, 50-something face. "John," he said, "and the line between us is thinner than you think."
Thank you, Martin. Right. We're going to move back onto the haze now to the statue of John Batchelor. Okay, we are here by the statue of John Batchelor to hear a piece called John Batchelor by Leonid Thomas. So, please, young man.
You cannot libel the dead. That's what the judge said.
Yes, but to write the things you wrote about him, a traitor to the crown, a reviler of the aristocracy, a hater of the clergy, have you no conscience, man?
No. Radical men like John Batchelor threaten the status quo with their far-fetched ideas on social reform. Absolute stupidity.
He was an industrialist and made his money in timber, slate and shipbuilding. But he used that wealth to better the lives of the less fortunate.
Nonsense. He was doing it to upset the other Cardiff industrialists, especially John Clayton Stewart, the third Marquis of Bute.
The Marquis of Bute bankrupted him. He also spread lies and conspiracy, theories about him, and discredited his name. Only the South Wales Daily News, owned by the Bute family, would print your rubbish.
Bute family owned Cardiff and didn't take kindly to a radical reformer wanting to educate the common man. How dare Bachelor suggest improving the lives and conditions of the masses? What good would it do them to be educated? They would get ideas above their class and cause all manner of trouble, thinking that they had some form of right to a better life. It would cause chaos.
You have had education, Mr. Enser. Do you not think that others are entitled to the same privilege in order to better themselves?
Of course not. Imagine the chaos and disruption to our society if the lower classes were educated. They would think themselves our equals. There would be no order and society would collapse.
But would it? Surely it would benefit. Surely society would benefit from a knowledgeable and educated population.
How so? Bachelor's type of education would mean that they will question the authority of the owners and demand higher wages because they will not be satisfied with their present working conditions. It would cause the collapse of our social hierarchy.
Can I draw your attention to the public fracas near the Great Western Hotel?
They assaulted us.
And who were us?
Me and Mr. Henry Le Cascar, the editor of the Western Mail.
And who were they?
Bachelor's sons, Cyril and Llewellyn. They were both waiting for us at the station. They must have known which train we would be travelling on.
I wonder why that was.
No idea.
I don't suppose it had anything to do with the disgraceful and libelous comments penned by you, Mr. Enser, under the name Censor in the Western Mail, regarding the unveiling of his statue in the Haze, which happens to stand in front of the free library that their father John founded for the benefit of all.
Llewellyn assaulted Carr first, knocking off his hat, then lashed at him with his dog whip, calling him a coward for publishing such lies.
Are you unable to see that your comments and accusations were cruel and untrue? Many people believed him to be the friend of freedom.
He was a traitor to the crown and a radical. He reviled the aristocracy and hated the clergy.
Hated the clergy? He was a devout Congregationalist, a lay minister who founded a new chapel in Charles Street. I don't believe he hated the church, only those who protected the establishment and all it stood for.
His aim was to set class against class. He supposedly wanted equality and fairness for the people, but what about the same fairness for the natural rulers of society, the creators of wealth?
As in just a few privileged and wealthy families, dictating how others must live and die? Families like the Buttes, who are so obscenely rich that they are afraid of general education and are without any form of social conscience?
John Bachelor died a pauper.
He did, but the people respected him for what he did to improve their lives. It was they who funded the erection of the statue in 1886, 3 years after his death. Some people also considered him to be the friend of freedom.
That monument stands as an eternal disgrace in Cardiff. I wish his kind of social reform died with him. There must always be a hierarchy of people fit to govern, and these people do not come from the lower social orders.
You may not be able to libel the dead, Mr. Enser, as the judge decreed when he found against Cyril and Llewellyn Bachelor. You mark my words, though, Enser. Change will come. Class divisions will reduce, and people will become literate. They will decide for themselves what is right or wrong, good or bad. You may think you have won the battle of the social classes, Mr. Enser, but you are wrong. The friend of freedom, John Bachelor, will triumph, and you and your lies and your conspiracies will be consigned to history.
Thank you, gentlemen. I mentioned before how the city has changed, and all of this, of course, used to be main traffic thoroughfares. And I wonder, in 100 years' time, perhaps walking tours will be told this was where there used to be a cycle path. Here was a zebra crossing. Ooh, what were these fantastical things? And this is where the Cardiff Metro is still due to be built. But we now head down to finish in the place that is visited by more tourists to Cardiff than anywhere else. We're going back to Chippy Lane. Just to let you know, there are a few slabs here that have to be changed before they did all the rearrangements, because they had to remove the imprints of my face from where I'd come out and fallen flat. I mentioned that this is probably the most visited place in Cardiff by foreign tourists, especially those from Scotland, Ireland, France, Italy and England, because they have to come here. We're going to hear Caroline Street. Sorry, no, that's the wrong one. So we're going to hear Caroline, Dorothy, Tony and me by Ian McNaughton.
Cardiff born and bred, that's me, in my capital oh so green. But they knocks it around, pulls the old to the ground. The original can hardly be seen. A sparkling new station, shadowed by student accommodation. Coffee shops within coffee shops. Is there no legislation? Maybe you'll disagree, but I can't find fault anymore. Cardiff is amazing, of that I'm very sure. We should go with the flow and welcome the change. Sticking in the past would be too strange. Embrace the new and open arms to the city. Just don't touch Chippy Lane with something less pretty. Oh, Chippy Lane, Caroline Street, you beaut. I can find you with my drunken eyes closed. My taste buds know the route. Wales could have lost, and so could Cardiff City. You give us hope and sprinkle it with pity. In all honesty, as I sit here and dwell, it's Wales who are doing amazing, and City not too well. Sting of a bluebird's loss is soothed, however, when on the same day Wales thrash England, chariots crushed by a feather. The castle dips and curves and proudly sits. By the walls of this wonder is where you can eat your chips. Yes, Caroline Street, I'm back to you. Each time that I visit, I'm always in a stew. Is it Dorothy's or Tony's? I never know what to do. Both exciting and busy. Chicken curry off the bone. I'll get one from each and take one home. Let's return to the castle. My God, it's so cool. When in the grounds as a kid, I used to bunk off school. It's stunning, majestic, and packed to the rim of history and fortune, outside its walls and in. I'm always so proud when out of a crowd I hear a tourist say that Cardiff's so grand and the people so nice, and they'll be back someday. 30 minutes to the coast and it's the same to the hills. There's so many places for us to get thrills.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for attending and for bearing with us on this inclement day. Just to say, I'm Paul from Cardiff Writers Circle. If you want to find out about us, look at www.cardiffwriterscircle.com. We have living lines here. They have their next event in June and leaflets are being handed out. They do a lot in coordination with the A48 Theatre Company, and we're also going to have representatives of Roath writers as well. So can I ask you to please give all our performers a good round of applause. Videos will be going up on the website, and it's probably now a good time to say thank you very much, and these have been some fascinating facts about Cardiff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.